Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Westmont Village Board meeting for September 17th, 2012. This is our regular voting meeting, and there will be no public comment tonight. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ron is absent tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Here.
Trustee Emery.
Here.
Well, I better tell them that I'm here too. Clerk's here. Trustee Klebanow is absent tonight. Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Nero.
Here.
Trustee Seneca.
Here.
Manager Searle.
Here.
Finance Director Parker.
Here.
Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Police Chief Mulhern.
Here.
Fire Chief Wise.
Here.
Acting Community Development Director Malik.
Here.
Human Resource Director Casey.
Here.
Communications McIntyre. That's it.
Please, everyone stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reports. The mayor left nothing for this evening, so we'll move on to the clerk.
The only thing I have to report tonight is that for the spring elections, the packets will be ready on September 25th. So everybody that's interested in running for either the mayor, clerk, there are 3 trustee positions, and library trustees, the packets are assembled and ready to go on the 25th. That's and the only other announcement I have is if you missed it Saturday, the pet parade at the park at Ty Warner was wonderful. Great turnout. The dogs were incredible. Steve was there with his dog. It was a fun time.
Even
and
the
all kinds of,
Even the snakes were incredible.
yeah, there's snakes. They had all kinds of, and a lot of vendors with cookies and things for dogs. It was really nice and a beautiful day. So next year, remember when it takes place to come out. Bring your dogs. It was cute. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Our village attorney?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Village manager?
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is ask for an executive session regarding personnel, potential land sale, and pending litigation. And the next thing is, for the public's benefit as well as the board members, I wanted to do the presentation this evening that we put together based upon our handout regarding home rule. So up on the screen, we've got a fairly brief PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go through these points. First off, I wanted to mention for the public's benefit that because we are a government, we're not permitted to advocate one way or the other regarding this question. So what we've tried to put together here are statements of fact and information for the public. And this information is available on the website. Currently, the handout is there that this is based upon. So if you want to look at this in greater depth, you'll be able to go there and click on the home rule section under government, and you'll find that information. Okay, the ballot question, and we talked about this before at several of our meetings, is going to be on the Tuesday, November 6th, 2012 general election ballot. The question says, shall the Village of Westmont cease to be a home rule unit? So if residents want to vote against it, they would vote yes. If they want to retain it, they would vote no. Now, what is home rule? It's hard to define completely. There was a ruling back in the late 1800s by a Judge Dillon in Iowa that became known as Dillon's Rule. That rule basically said that municipalities in the state are creatures of the state. They don't have any powers greater or can exceed what the state grants them. This became an accepted rule throughout most of the country and became known as Dillon's Rule. Up until 1970, when Illinois redid the Constitution, there was no category of home rule. In the 1970 Constitution, the General Assembly created two classifications of communities. A home rule community is one that exceeds 25,000 in population. They automatically become a home rule community, and anything less than that is considered non-home rule. There's also a provision in the in the Constitution and the statutes that allow for communities to adopt it by referendum, as well as remove it by referendum. Presently, there's 167 home rule units of government in Illinois. What are some of the advantages of being a home rule community? One thing, and it kind of goes with the theme of the heading, local control. Residents have greater access to the people that are making decisions regarding local programs and services. Communities can do certain things that are not prohibited by statute to home rule communities. And as most people know, you can come to any particular board member here and talk to your elected officials about your feelings. Whereas if you rely on the state to pass laws, you have access to your local representatives, but you certainly don't have access to a majority of the folks in the General Assembly that are making decisions, unless, of course, you go down to Springfield and try that approach. Because, as I mentioned before, you're less dependent on the state. As a non-home rule community, there are certain things that you can't do unless the state grants you permission to do that by act. There are less state mandates. When we talk about mandates, we usually talk about the unfunded mandates. Those are typically things that are passed as law, and their costs that are passed on to the community. Now, the state can exempt home rule communities from that, and they can force, those mandates on the home rule communities, but they have to do that by action in the legislation. There's broader ability to tax non-residents. We have used a couple of examples of this. The gas tax and the sales tax allows us to try to gather revenue from sources outside the community to help offset some of our expenses and programs and services, so we don't have to rely as much on property tax, which the residents obviously have to pay. There's greater flexibility with the hotel motel tax. We've been able to take a significant amount of revenue, which is about $500,000 a year, and be able to put that in the general fund, which is our main operating fund that pays for services and programs in our main departments in the village. There's more flexible powers for local problems. If there's a specific issue that the community wants to address, unless it's prohibited by state statute, you can look for creative ways to address that and pass your own local legislation. You could borrow money at lower interest rates, which obviously is a benefit to the residents because it saves them tax dollars. And you have the ability to create broader impact fees. This is valuable in that if there's a major project in your community, you can change the impact fees to help offset the increased service demands that sometimes those projects create. Neighborhood preservation flexibility. The example I would use for this is what we did with the multifamily licensing program that allows us to create a program that hopefully improves the quality of life for the people that are living in those multifamily complexes, and we've had that program in place since 2010, and we believe it's been successful. Protects the village from county home rule powers. Now, DuPage County is not home rule, but if they were to become it, that would, we would not be subject to their authority. Arguments against home rule. The big one is we're not subject to property tax caps in those parts of the state where the property tax caps exist. Our village board has been very disciplined in terms of how they've tried to stay within the property tax cap. The one exception that we made is for the percentage of the property tax that is applied to help pay for the police pension fund. There's legislation that requires us to have a fully funded pension fund by, I believe it's 2030. Our board met with the pension board a couple of years ago and developed a plan and a commitment to them to help make sure that we have fully funded pension fund. Whereas there are many pension funds throughout the state that are struggling right now, and as you know, a lot of them are state pension funds. The other big one is potential broad power abuse. Because it's hard to define what you can do with home rule, a board or a council can pass a law that the citizenry might object to and say, you know, this is abuse of the power and your authority as local elected officials. So that is a potential. But again, you have the ability to address that with your local elected officials, whereas if the state passes a law, you don't have as great access to them. One unfounded argument that we've heard is that it allows you to ignore the Bill of Rights or the Constitution. That's just simply not true. You're still required to follow those laws. Okay, if the village ends up losing home rule with the referendum, what does that mean to the community? In our case, that means a loss of something over $2 million that we have currently budgeted. That varies from year to year, but it's somewhere in the range of $2.1 to $2.3 million. How we can address this is through budget cuts, program and service reductions. This is something that the board would have to talk about in the upcoming budget process if we end up losing home rule status. We would also probably look at alternative revenue increases, at least those that we would be allowed to do as a non-home rule community to try to offset that. Have had a number of questions from people as to, well, what do the cuts mean? I can't predict, what the board might do in terms of cutting services programs or cuts. But I can, as an example, give you just some kind of round numbers in terms of how it could impact our operating departments. Currently in this year's budget, for the police department, for example, we have a little over $8 million budgeted. So this would represent about 26% of that budget. Or as using the fire department as an example, that's over almost $4.5 million. That's almost 50% of that budget. And of course, Public Works has a similar number. It's $4.1 million, so it's over 50%. In total of those three operating departments, and again, I'm not saying that this is what the board is going to do. I'm just trying to give some sort of percentage context of what this means to our budget. But totaling all three of those departments, it's about a 13% impact if you were to spread those costs against all of those departments. Abuse safeguards. Elections. Voters can defeat elected officials if they feel like they're abusing the home rule power. Voters also have the opportunity to rescind home rule. There's been 31 rescission elections, and home rule has been rejected in 4 cases here in the state. Home rule has not been rescinded in any community in over 20 years since the last time it occurred here in the state. In order to get the question on the ballot, it requires a minimum of 10% of the voters from the last mayoral election. Another safeguard is legislative preemption. A simple majority of both legislative houses is needed to provide state exercise of a particular power, and they would do that by saying in the legislation that home rule communities are prohibited from doing whatever. They also can, by a 3/5 majority of both legislative houses, deny home rule governments the right to use a particular power that already exists. There's also judicial review, obviously through the court system. There are constitutional protections. As we mentioned earlier, it doesn't allow the community to ignore constitutional rights and protections through either the U.S. or the state constitution. General Assembly imposed obligations. For example, they have imposed certain obligations on home rule communities. A good example is the Freedom of Information Act, the Open Meetings Act, and legislation regarding collective bargaining. This is just a graph showing how the community's population has grown over the last several decades. In 2007, we did a special census. That's when we became home rule. That was initiated after we had a Citizens Financial Review Committee, an ad hoc committee that gave its report to the board in January of 2006, in which they recommended that we proceed with a special census and try to achieve home rule status. And I should point out that we were actually prepared to do a special census as early as 2003 after the 2000 decennial census. We had all our applications ready to go. The board, however, asked us to wait because they were concerned about the home rule or the impact of becoming home rule, and they wanted to spend some time trying to educate the community. So it certainly wasn't a rash decision by the village by any stretch of the imagination, because it took almost 3 years before we actually reapplied and did the special census. This last page is just some sources on home rule information. If you go to our website, you can find the full citations for this, and there's links to these particular studies that have been done on home rule. And that is it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board members might have.
Ron, I just have one clarification, and that's on the gas tax and the home rule sales tax you mentioned as applying to non-residents. That is a true statement. It does also apply to residents. I know you pointed that out in earlier presentations, but just so everyone's clear.
Yeah,
everyone pays that tax, but
right, you can't target it to non-home rule, non-residents, but it does allow us to attract some revenue.
Sort of share the pain.
right.
And the hotel motel tax, you did say that it can no longer go into the coffers, but what's the limitation on it in a non-home rule community?
Yeah, prior to us achieving home rule status, we had to follow the requirement that everyone that's a non-home rule community is required to spend an overnight stay in the community. And
It's promoting convention and tourism within the community,
Right.
including overnight
Right.
stays.
Right. But that's the limit on it then, right? We
Right.
can't use it for,
right,
it can only be used to promote convention and tourism and overnight stays. It can't be used for anything else.
What's the percentage?
There's no
100%.
public comment here tonight, I'm sorry.
100%.
it's a 5% fee.
No, well, how much of the hotel, I took it as how much of that hotel motel tax can no longer be used for, where it can,
Oh,
that's 100% of it.
yeah, and as I said in the presentation, it's annually about 500,000. It was high as, before 2007, we peaked at like $800,000 a year.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
That is it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Number 5, any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Nope.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Emery.
Second, Seneca?
Moved by Emery, seconded by Seneca. Roll call, please.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Okay, unfinished business. Temporary moratorium extension. Board to consider an ordinance extending the temporary moratorium on development in the area commonly known as Northeast Acres.
Motion to approve, Fleming.
Second, Emery.
Comments? Hearing no comments, roll call, please.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
New business. Westmont High School homecoming events. Board to consider an ordinance approving a sound amplification permit, use of village equipment, a partial street closure of Cass and Melrose Avenue, and a code waiver to allow for a bonfire for the Westmont Homecoming Parade and Bonfire event on October 4th, 2012, from 6:15 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Motion to approve, Seneca?
Second, Emery.
Comments?
Just a clarification, I think, although the agenda item reads use of village equipment, the students won't be riding in the fire trucks, et cetera, so the ordinance reflects it.
Great.
It's removed that phrase.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
B, North Grant, North Adams Water Main Project. Board to consider an ordinance awarding a bid for North Grant and North Adams Water Main Project and authorizing a construction contract with the selected bidder.
Motion to approve, Emery.
Second, Nero.
Comments? Hearing no comments, roll call, please.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes. C, Apris Dockview Professional Services. Board to consider an ordinance approving an agreement between the Village of Westmont and Apris Dockview to permit the collection and dissemination of traffic crash reports completed by the police department.
Motion to approve, Seneca?
Second, Emery.
Get that? Questions? Comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
D, Employment Agreement. Board to consider an ordinance approving an employment agreement with the Chief of Police.
So moved, Emery.
Second, Fleming.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes. E, Constitution Week Proclamation. Board to consider a motion approving a proclamation declaring the week of September 17th through September 23rd, 2012 as Constitution Week. And I have this proclamation to read. Whereas September 17th, 2012 marks the 225th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebration to which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Therefore, I, Robert Scott, representing William H. Ron, by virtue of the authority vested in him as mayor of the Village of Westmont, along with the Westmont Village Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2012 as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through the guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness whereof William Ron has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the Village of Westmont affixed to the 17th day of the 19th ninth month of, hang on a second, of the ninth month of the year of the Lord 2012.
So moved, Emery.
Second, Nero.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
that was
Roll call,
hard.
please.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
And I would like to present this to Mrs. Martha Millard, Daughters of the American Revolution, chapter representative. As she's here every year for.
A familiar face, yes.
87.
I live in Westmont, that's why you see me every
We love that.
year.
Nice.
Granddaughter.
It's always that, isn't it?
Do you want to go to the microphone so that they can hear you?
I just wanted to say that, as your agenda points out, this is the 225th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution, which is not only a historic document as far as our country is concerned, it's also been used as a model for the Constitution of other countries. And the Downers Grove chapter, which covers Westmont, Downers Grove, Lisle, and Woodridge, is most appreciative of the Village of Westmont's continued support for this commemoration. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Okay, F, no text on board Pledge Day proclamation. Board to consider a motion approving a proclamation declaring September 19th, 2012 as no text on board Pledge Day. And that one is, whereas the Village of Westmont holds the health and safety of its young adults as a chief concern, and whereas text messaging is the main mode of communication for most American teenagers, with half of all teens sending between 21 and 70 texts a day, and whereas 90% of American teenagers expect a reply to a text message within 5 minutes, and whereas texting takes one's eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds, and whereas in an AT&T survey, 43% of American teenage drivers admitted to texting while driving, even though 97% know it's dangerous. And whereas a recent study showed those who send text messages while driving are 23 times more likely to crash. Whereas a driver that sends a text message while driving not only jeopardizes his or her safety, but also the safety of passengers, pedestrians, and other drivers. Now, therefore, be it resolved for William H. Ron, who hereby proclaims September 19th, 2012 as No Text on Board Pledge Day.
Motion to approve, Fleming.
Second, Seneca?
Comments, questions?
Yes,
Ron?
comment.
Oh,
And it says also to encourage all drivers to take the pledge to never text and
thank
drive
you.
again. That says all drivers, and the thing I don't like is teenagers get it a lot of times. Most of them get it, and I've been seeing more people of middle age and older that don't get it. So I think this health and safety of young adults also applies to the young adults that aren't even in a car, but some nut who ought to know better for all their years on earth is texting and probably trying to figure out how to do it, so while they're driving. So I'd just like to add that I'm not in favor of singling this out as a teenager problem. It's a problem of people that don't know any better.
Especially when they're driving down the expressway. At any time.
Or on
But it's
Fairview
right, and it
this
doesn't make any
morning.
difference, right?
you were behind me? Just kidding. Just kidding.
I was like honking like,
Just kidding.
Sue, put the thing down.
Just kidding. Ron, could we get a copy of this to the president of the school board?
Sure. Yeah, that
201.
was, I think, the backup information I gave you on Thursday, that was something that was, the form came from Illinois Municipal League.
Yeah, I saw that in our packet.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Fleming,
Yes.
trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Emery,
Yes.
trustees Fleming, well, I called Fleming, I'm sorry, trustee Scott,
Yes.
trustee Nero.
Yes.
Anything else to come before the board at this time?
No?
If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for potential land sale, pending litigation and
Slow
personnel.
tonight, are you?
I am slow tonight. I do have one thing to go before the
Sure.
board, and maybe it was said and I am slow, but I would appreciate, if you didn't already do it, as part of the facts for the home rule issue, it is a fact about why none of the trustees or the mayor are making public comment about it. So I would like that fact to go out to the residents so they know why, normally I have an opinion on everything, why it's not being voiced. I think they ought to know that.
Yeah, I should have been a little more descriptive in the first part, but yeah, it extends to elected and appointed officials with the village.
Right. That we're not allowed to take a stand on it.
Because we can be fined or jailed.
Any other
Nope.
things to come before us?
That's it. Sounds good.
Okay, roll call, please.
I need the
Oh,
motion.
we need a motion?
Motion to adjourn into executive session. Nero.
Second, Emery.
Roll call?
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned to executive session.
Done.
Thank you.